The words hit me harder than any storm I've ever faced. I wasn't expecting him for Christmas. My own son said it. Cold, careless, like I didn't exist. For a moment I just stood there in the hallway, clutching the banister, feeling my heart sink into a darkness I hadn't known since losing his mother. My name is Richard Collins, 58 years old. I'm a man who's worked his entire life, sacrificed everything, and even carried the burden of paying for the very roof over my son's head. That house, his house, was built on my sweat, my sacrifices, and my promises. But now, this Christmas, the words of my only son cut deeper than a knife. And what I chose to do next would change his life forever. If you are watching this right now, drop a comment letting me know where you are viewing from. Before I tell you about this life-changing decision, hit like and subscribe to hear more revenge stories. It was a cold December night, the kind where the air bites at your skin and the silence feels heavy. I had just returned from the grocery store, carrying bags filled with Christmas treats, my small attempt to bring back the warmth of holidays we once shared. As I stepped through the door, I heard voices. My son, Daniel, 30 years old, was speaking on the phone in the living room. I froze on the staircase, the paper bags digging into my hands as his words echoed through the house. "No, don't worry. He won't be here for Christmas. I wasn't expecting him anyway." The world seemed to stop. He wasn't expecting me, his own father. I pressed against the wall, struggling to breathe, my heart pounding like thunder in my ears. For years, I had been paying the mortgage on this house, making sure my son never struggled the way I did. And now he was planning a Christmas without me. But the worst part wasn't the words, it was what came next. Daniel lowered his voice, and with a bitter laugh, he whispered into the phone, "It's better if he doesn't know." I sat alone in the kitchen that night, staring at the blinking Christmas lights I had put up myself. The house was quiet, but inside me, the silence was deafening. I remembered the Christmases when Daniel was just a boy, how his eyes used to light up at the sight of presents, how he used to run into my arms the moment I walked through the door. Back then, I thought love was unbreakable, eternal. But now the laughter of the past only echoed as pain. I poured myself a glass of whiskey, my hands trembling. Questions tormented me. Why didn't he want me there? What was he hiding? I had sacrificed everything, my savings, my retirement, my health, to give him the life he had. I even carried the mortgage on this very house so he could live without worry. And yet, here I was, left out of my own family's Christmas. But just as I sank deeper into my loneliness, I noticed something strange. A piece of paper sticking out from the drawer near the fridge. When I pulled it out, my blood ran cold. It wasn't just a piece of paper. It was an invitation to a Christmas dinner at my son's house. And my name wasn't on the list. I stared at the invitation, my hands shaking. Names filled the page. Family, friends, even neighbors I barely knew. Everyone had a place at Daniel's Christmas table. Everyone except me. I sat back in my chair, my chest tight, trying to understand. Why would my own son want the world there but not his father? The next morning I decided to test him. Over breakfast I casually asked, "So, Christmas plans, should I bring the wine or maybe the turkey?" Daniel froze. His smile faltered, just for a second, before he forced a laugh. "Dad, it's nothing big, just a small thing with a few people, don't worry about it." But I had seen the guest list. A few people. There were dozens. Later that day I overheard him again, talking on the phone. His tone was cheerful, full of excitement I hadn't heard in years. "Yeah, it's going to be perfect. The decorations, the music, the food, like the picture-perfect family gathering." Picture perfect. For everyone else maybe, but for me I was being erased. I clenched my fists, anger rising. If my son wanted a perfect family image, I was going to find out exactly what kind of secret he was hiding behind it. And when I did, he'd regret ever cutting me out, because that night I followed him. And what I saw wasn't just betrayal, it was something far worse. It was, as I followed Daniel from a distance, memories kept clawing back at me. That house he lived in, the one he decorated so beautifully for Christmas, wasn't just his. It was mine. I was the one who signed the papers, the one who poured my savings into the down payment, the one who made sure every month's mortgage was paid, quietly, secretly, so he could focus on his future. I told him, "This house will be your fresh start, son, a promise from me to you." And what did I get in return? Silence, lies, exclusion. I stopped walking and stared at the glowing windows of his house. Inside, I could see him laughing with people. Friends, family, smiling like the perfect host, like a man who had built everything with his own 2 hands. But none of them knew the truth. None of them knew the house was built on my sacrifice. As I stood in the shadows, my heart pounding, I realized something. Daniel wasn't just shutting me out of Christmas. He was shutting me out of his life. And the cruelest part? That very night, through the open window, I heard his voice say the words that nearly broke me. "He doesn't matter anymore." Those 4 words burned into my chest. He doesn't matter anymore. I stood outside, my breath fogging in the cold night air, while inside my son carried on as if I didn't exist. The next morning, Daniel tried to act normal, humming carols while making coffee, but his eyes avoided mine. That silence spoke louder than words, so I tested him again. "I was thinking," I said slowly, "maybe this year we could invite Aunt Clara. She'd love a proper Christmas dinner." Daniel froze. His jaw tightened before he muttered, "Dad, like I said, it's just something small. Don't make it complicated." Small? The invitation list in my pocket told me otherwise. Every hour his lies grew thicker. He rushed out for errands, he whispered on calls, and whenever I walked into the room, his smile disappeared. It was clear. He was building a Christmas where I didn't exist. But what he didn't know was that I was done sitting quietly in the shadows. That night I made a decision. I wasn't going to wait for an invitation. I was going to crash his perfect little Christmas. And when I did, he'd finally learn just how much power I still had over his life. Because in my desk drawer upstairs, hidden beneath old bills, was a secret he had no idea about. The mortgage contract, still in my name. The house was too quiet that evening. I sat in my study, pretending to read the newspaper, when I heard a faint murmur drifting from the kitchen. Daniel's voice, low, urgent. I leaned closer, straining to catch the words. "Don't worry. He won't be there. Trust me, everything will go as planned." My stomach twisted. Who was he talking to? And what did he mean I won't be there? I stepped into the hallway, careful not to make the floorboards creak. "Yes," he continued, his tone sharper now. "It'll just be us. No interruptions this time. I'll make sure of it." Interruptions? Us? My hands tightened into fists. The sound of a chair scraping told me the call was ending. I rushed back to my seat, my heart pounding like a guilty man's drum. Seconds later, Daniel walked in, phone in hand, plastering on a smile. "Everything okay, Dad?" I nodded, masking the storm inside me. But that night, as I lay awake, his words echoed in my head. "He won't be there. I'll make sure of it." It wasn't just about Christmas anymore. Daniel wasn't hiding a celebration. He was hiding something much darker, and whatever it was, I had to uncover it, before he erased me completely from his life. The next morning, I made myself invisible in my own house. Daniel rushed off to work, leaving his laptop glowing faintly on the dining table. For a moment I just stared. Should I? Could I? But the sound of his mocking words, "He won't be there," pushed me forward. With trembling fingers, I opened the laptop. His calendar was neatly color-coded, but one event stood out. Christmas Eve. Private dinner. I clicked it. A list of names appeared. People I knew, people from our past. Old family friends, neighbors, even my late wife's sister. Every name carefully chosen. Every detail meticulously planned. But mine? Absent. I scrolled further, and my breath caught. There was another guest. Someone I hadn't heard from in years. Someone Daniel swore he'd cut ties with forever. Michael Turner. My heart froze. Michael wasn't just an old friend. He was the man I blamed for tearing our family apart. Why would Daniel invite him? The screen blurred as anger and betrayal swirled inside me. This wasn't just a Christmas without me. This was a conspiracy. And my own son was leading it. The name on that screen kept flashing in my mind like a warning light. Michael Turner. 10 years had passed since I'd last seen him. 10 years since he and I nearly came to blows at my wife's funeral. I remember his smirk, the way he put a hand on my son's shoulder as if he were the father. I made Daniel swear that day Michael would never be part of our lives again, and now he was the guest of honor at my son's secret Christmas dinner. That night, I couldn't sit still. I dug through old drawers, boxes of photographs, even letters my wife had kept hidden. Every trace of Michael reminded me of betrayal, of broken promises, of a man who always lingered at the edges of my family. But why now? Why return after all these years? I needed answers. The next morning, I followed Daniel. He didn't know I was behind him, watching as he slipped into a cafe downtown. Minutes later, Michael walked in, older, sharper, but with the same poisonous grin. I watched as my son stood up and hugged him like a long-lost brother. I felt my world tilt. Whatever they were planning, it wasn't just about Christmas anymore. It was about replacing me, and I wasn't going to let it happen. The cafe buzzed with chatter, clinking cups and holiday music, but none of it reached me. My focus was locked on the corner table where my son sat with the man I despised. Michael leaned in close, his voice low. I edged toward the hallway that led to the restrooms, pretending to check my phone while straining to hear. "So," Michael said, his tone oily, "does he suspect anything?" Daniel shook his head. "Not a clue. He still thinks I'm planning some small family thing. By the time he realizes, it'll be too late." "Too late?" My heart thumped against my ribs. Michael chuckled. "Good. Because once the house is in your name, we'll finally have what we need. He can't hold you back anymore." The house, my house. I pressed my back to the wall, every word cutting deeper. Daniel's voice dropped even lower, but I caught enough. "The mortgage is still under him. I just need him distracted long enough to—" The scrape of a chair cut him off. I panicked, stepping quickly into the restroom before they saw me. My pulse was racing, my palms damp. They weren't just planning Christmas without me. They were planning to take everything I had left. And worst of all, my own son was helping the man who once tried to destroy my family. The drive back home felt endless. My knuckles were white against the steering wheel, every streetlight flickering like a signal. Do it now. When Daniel walked in later that evening, humming as if nothing was wrong, I couldn't hold back. "Who is he to you?" I asked sharply. Daniel froze in the doorway. "Who?" "Don't play games with me," I snapped. "Michael Turner. I saw you. I heard you." For a moment his mask slipped. His eyes narrowed, his lips pressed into a thin line. Then just like that he laughed. "You shouldn't have been spying on me, Dad." "Spying? My own son?" "He's using you, Daniel," I shouted. "That man ruined our family once, and now you're letting him do it again. Why? What hold does he have on you?" Daniel dropped his bag with a thud. "You don't understand. Michael's the only one who's ever been honest with me. He gives me what you never could." My chest tightened. "And what's that?" Daniel's voice rose, shaking with anger. "The truth." The word echoed through the room like a gunshot. I wanted to ask, to demand what he meant, but the look in his eyes stopped me cold. It wasn't anger alone, it was fear. Fear of something bigger than both of us. And in that moment, I realized Michael Turner wasn't just back. He had already sunk his claws into my son. Sleep wouldn't come that night. Daniel's words, "Michael gives me what you never could," echoed like a curse. I wandered the house searching for answers in old corners. That's when I remembered the attic, a place I hadn't touched since my wife passed away. Dust clung to every surface as I pulled open the old wooden trunk. Inside were faded photographs, Christmas ornaments, and a box tied with a ribbon nearly worn through. I opened it. Letters, dozens of them, all in my wife's handwriting, but they weren't to me. They were addressed to Michael Turner. My hands shook as I unfolded the first one. "Michael, thank you for being there when Richard wasn't. I don't know how I could face these days without you." I felt the air leave my lungs. Letter after letter revealed the same thing, my wife confiding in him, leaning on him, trusting him. But then near the bottom of the pile, one envelope stood out. Different paper, a trembling script. "Michael, if Richard ever finds out the truth about Daniel, it will destroy everything." The letter slipped from my fingers. The truth about Daniel. My wife's voice from the past whispered through those words, leaving me frozen in the dark attic. Michael hadn't just been a family friend. He had been something far more dangerous. And now, my son was standing at his side. The words from that letter seared into my brain. The truth about Daniel. I sat on the attic floor, letters scattered around me, my chest heavy as if the house itself was crushing down. Was it possible? After all these years, could Daniel not be mine? I thought back to the early years of our marriage. Nights I worked late, the times my wife grew distant, the unexplained absences she brushed off with a smile. And Michael, always nearby, always too close. My hands trembled as I picked up another letter. Michael, he doesn't suspect anything. Daniel has his smile, but he'll never know the truth as long as we keep this secret. My vision blurred. The room spun. Daniel, my son, my pride, my blood. Or was he? The front door creaked open downstairs. Panic shot through me. I stuffed the letters back into the box and shoved it beneath the ornaments, just as footsteps echoed up the stairs. "Dad?" Daniel's voice called. I swallowed the storm raging inside me. "Yes, son?" He appeared in the doorway, his eyes suspicious, scanning the attic. For a moment our gazes locked, and I knew he saw the dust on my hands, the guilt on my face. "What were you doing up here?" he asked slowly. My throat went dry, because if he ever found out what I now knew, everything between us would shatter. The next morning I couldn't look at Daniel the same way. Every word he spoke, every smile he forced felt like a stranger's. Was he my son or Michael's? I needed the truth. But how could I get it without tearing us apart completely? That's when the thought struck me. Quiet, dangerous, but impossible to ignore. A DNA test. The idea ate at me all day. While Daniel was at work, I paced the kitchen, staring at the coffee mug he'd left behind. His fingerprints, his DNA. Proof waiting to be taken. My hands shook as I slipped the mug into a plastic bag and tucked it into my coat pocket. I hated myself for it, but I had to know. That evening I drove into the city, my heart pounding as I walked into a private lab. The clerk barely looked up when I handed over the bag. "Anonymous test," I whispered. She nodded, scribbling down details. "Results in 3 days. 3 days. 3 days to wonder if my life had been a lie." But as I left the lab, I saw a figure across the street, Michael Turner, standing there, watching me. And when our eyes met, he smiled, as if he already knew exactly what I was doing. 3 days, that's what the clerk said. But each hour stretched like an eternity, every tick of the clock hammering into my skull. I tried to act normal around Daniel. I sat with him at dinner, asked about work, even forced a laugh when he told a story. But inside I was crumbling. Was I sharing a table with my son or with Michael's? Late at night I paced the living room, staring at the family portraits on the wall. Daniel as a boy, smiling with missing teeth. His first school play. His graduation. All the moments I thought were mine. But what if they weren't? Every time Daniel caught me staring, suspicion flickered in his eyes. He was hiding something too. I could feel it. Once I heard him on the phone again. His words were muffled, but one phrase reached me clear as day. "He won't be a problem much longer." My blood ran cold. Was he talking about me? The waiting gnawed at me, eating away what little peace I had left. But when the phone finally rang, my heart nearly stopped. The lab, the results were ready. And deep down, I knew. My life was about to change forever. The envelope felt heavier than any weight I'd ever carried. My hands trembled as I sat alone in my study, the blinds drawn tight. I tore it open, one glance, and the world collapsed beneath me. Probability of paternity, 0%. Daniel was not my son. The air left my lungs in a ragged gasp. My heart pounded against my ribs, each beat screaming betrayal. All the years, the birthdays, the sleepless nights, the sacrifices, none of it bound by blood. I staggered to my feet, pacing the room, clutching the paper like it might burn a hole through me. And then the cruelest thought struck. Michael had known all along. That smug smile, that confidence. He had the truth in his pocket while I lived in ignorance. But Daniel, did he know? Or was he still in the dark, manipulated by the man who claimed to be his real father? A noise at the door snapped me from my spiral. The handle rattled. "Dad?" Daniel's voice called. I shoved the papers into the desk drawer, my pulse racing. When I opened the door, he stood there, eyes narrowed, watching me too closely. "What are you hiding?" he asked, and for the first time in my life I didn't know whether to protect him or to fear him. I couldn't sleep. The words on that report burned into my mind. 0%. I sat at the edge of my bed, staring at the door to Daniel's room. For 25 years I thought of him as my son. I taught him to ride a bike, picked him up when he fell, stayed awake through his fevers. But now, what was I to him? A father or just a stranger who happened to raise him? The next morning, Daniel poured himself coffee, glancing at me with suspicion. His tone was sharp. "You've been acting weird lately. What are you hiding?" I almost told him. The truth sat on the tip of my tongue, clawing to break free. But then I saw it. That flicker in his eyes. Fear. Guilt. Something he didn't want me to know. Michael had already poisoned him. I couldn't give him another reason to turn away. Not yet. "Nothing, son," I said softly, forcing the word son through my lips. "Just tired." He studied me for a long moment, then shrugged and left. As the door closed, I pressed my hands against the table, trembling. If Daniel wasn't mine by blood, then Michael was closer to him than I ever could be. But blood didn't erase 25 years of being a father, and if Michael thought he could steal my son from me, he was about to learn. I would fight for Daniel, even if it destroyed us both. It started subtly. Daniel's tone shifted when he spoke to me, short, clipped, guarded. Then came the late nights, the whispered calls, the sudden errands that always led him back to Michael. One evening, I saw them together across town. Michael had his hand on Daniel's shoulder, guiding him like a puppet master. My son, nodded along to every word. I couldn't hear them, but I didn't need to. The look on Michael's face said it all. He was winning. Later that night, Daniel came home with documents tucked under his arm. When I asked, he snapped, "It's none of your business." But I caught a glimpse. Bank statements, property papers, my house. Michael wasn't just tightening his grip on Daniel's mind, he was tightening it around everything I owned, everything I had built. And Daniel. He wasn't resisting. I tried once more, desperate. "Daniel, please listen to me. He's not who you think he is. He's dangerous." But Daniel's reply was like a knife. "No, Dad, you're the one who's dangerous. Michael told me everything, about you, about Mom, about the lies you've kept from me." My throat went dry. Lies. Michael had turned my own past into a weapon, and now my son believed him more than he believed me. I couldn't take it anymore. Watching Michael whisper poison into Daniel's ear was killing me. That night, when I saw Daniel leave the house with those papers again, I followed him. My car trailed his through winding streets until he stopped at Michael's loft downtown. The moment Daniel disappeared inside, I stepped out. My fists were clenched, my chest burning. I wasn't leaving until I faced the man who had stolen everything from me. I banged on the door. Seconds later, Michael opened it, that smug grin already waiting for me. "Richard," he drawled, "finally grew a spine?" I shoved past him, my voice shaking with rage. "What are you doing to my son?" He chuckled, closing the door behind us. "Your son? You mean my son? Don't you get it yet? Daniel knows the truth now. He knows who his real father is." The words hit like a sledgehammer. My knees almost buckled, but anger held me up. "You think blood makes you his father?" I roared. "Where were you when he took his first steps? When he cried in the night? When he needed someone to believe in him?" Michael stepped closer, his eyes cold. I was there for his mother, and that's all that ever mattered. For a moment I saw red. My fist flew before I could stop it, connecting with his jaw. He staggered back, laughing through the blood on his lip. "This is only the beginning, Richard," he hissed. "By Christmas, you'll have nothing left." And standing there in that room, I realized he wasn't bluffing. Snow fell heavy that Christmas Eve, blanketing the streets in silence. But inside Michael's loft, the tension was deafening. Daniel stood between us, his eyes flicking from me to Michael like a man forced to choose sides in a war he never asked for. Michael broke the silence first, his voice smooth and venomous. "It's time, Daniel. You can't live in two worlds anymore. You either stand with me or with him." I stepped forward, my chest tight. "Daniel, listen to me. Blood doesn't make a father, love does. I raised you, I was there every day of your life." Michael sneered. "Raised him? You mean lied to him? Hid the truth about who I was, about who he really is? Tell him, Richard. Tell him what you've been hiding." Daniel's eyes locked on mine, burning with confusion and anger. "Is it true?" he demanded. "Did you know all along?" My throat tightened. I wanted to lie to protect him, but the truth was a blade I couldn't hold back anymore. "Yes," I whispered. "I knew there was a chance, that Michael might be your father. But I didn't care, Daniel. You were always my son. Always." Daniel's face twisted with betrayal. He turned toward Michael, who opened his arms like a vulture. "See, son," Michael said softly. "I never lied to you. I never kept you in the dark. With me, you'll finally have the truth." I felt my world slipping away, and then Daniel said the words that cut deeper than any knife. "I don't know who to believe anymore." The clock struck midnight. Christmas Day. Daniel stood frozen between us, his fists clenched, his breath quick and shallow. Michael's hand rested on his shoulder like a chain, while I stood across the room, my heart breaking with every second of silence. Finally, Daniel spoke. His voice cracked. "All my life, I thought I knew who I was. And now, I don't even know which one of you is telling the truth." Michael leaned in, whispering like a devil in his ear. "Choose me, Daniel. Blood doesn't lie. You're mine." I stepped forward, my voice trembling but fierce. "No, son. Blood may tell you where you came from, but love tells you who you are. You are my son, not because of DNA, but because I never gave up on you." Daniel's eyes glistened with tears. He looked at Michael, then at me. And then he pulled Michael's hand off his shoulder. "I can't trust you," he said coldly. "You've been manipulating me, using me. Maybe Richard isn't my father by blood, but he's the only father I'll ever have." Michael's smile snapped into a snarl. "You'll regret this," he spat. But before he could move, Daniel stepped in front of me, blocking him. "No, you're the one who's finished here." Michael stormed out into the snow, his shadow swallowed by the night. For the first time in weeks, silence filled the room. Daniel turned to me, tears streaming down his face. "Dad," he whispered, his voice breaking, "can you ever forgive me?" I pulled him into my arms, my own tears falling freely. "There's nothing to forgive. You're my son, always." And as the snow fell outside, I realized that Christmas hadn't taken my family away. It had given me the greatest gift of all, my son back. The snow outside melted, but the scars of that Christmas would never fade. Daniel chose me, his father by love, not by blood. But deep inside, I knew the battle wasn't over. Michael's words still echoed in my mind. "You'll regret this." Was this really the end, or just the calm before another storm? If you were in my place, would you have forgiven your son, or turned your back forever? Tell me your thoughts in the comments, and if this story gripped you to the very end, hit like and subscribe for more shocking revenge and family stories that will leave you speechless.